Well, I'm Tenitra Batiste, but do the Falcons know who they are? And he may not be on the hot seat, but did that seat get a little warmer Sunday?
I'm Tori McElhaney, and I really don't have that much to say.
I'm Aaron Freeman, and like Tori McElhaney, I am also too very tired.
I'm Jarvis Davis, and you know what? It's Therapy Monday, so let's get this thing started.
Rise up, A-Town. It's the Falcons Squad. Everything Atlanta Falcons every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the ATL. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Straight from the ATL, the Falcons Squad Show starts now.
Welcome to the Falcons Squad Show, your home for the best Atlanta Falcons football talk. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me are Locked On Falcons host Aaron Freeman, Locked On analyst Jarvis Davis, and Falcons senior reporter Tori McElhaney. The Squad Show is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. So the elite processor didn't play, but kind of sort of neither did the elite backup. We'll discuss. Also, low energy is inexplicable. We'll talk about it. And can trade deadline dealings offer a solution? We'll download that too. But first, the trap game came to fruition. So on Thursday's Squad Show, we posed this two-part question. Is the game against the Dolphins the perfect scenario for the Falcons to rebound coming off a loss against the 49ers? Or is playing a team that's lost 3 straight sort of a trap game that we put in quotes? Now, we're going to get into some of the nuts and bolts on both sides of the ball for the Falcons. But, Tori, despite the fact that you said you don't have anything to say, I got a sneaking suspicion my girl has something to say. So I'm starting with you. And listen, I want to say this too, Tori, before we start. This is what Jarvis called it. It is Therapy Monday. Whether it is this show or all around Atlanta with those who cover this team, those who root for this team, those who are diehards. So if it goes a little off the rails, I am giving everybody license to do whatever they need to do to get through this Monday. That said, Tori, watch yourself, Jarvis. That said, Tori, why and how in the Sam hell did this end up being a trap game? How does that happen?
I wish I had an answer.
I know.
I do. And I think if I did have an answer, I would probably be making more money than what I do, and having I would be the best coach in the history of coaches. I would be so much. I have a lot of self-confidence.
Sure.
But if I were able to figure out what the heck is going on right now, I would have no one would be able to talk to me because I would be so confident. Ultimately, the issues that we saw against the Miami Dolphins were not new issues. Yes, you had a different collective group that was playing, but the issues the Falcons have offensively, mainly offensively, remained the issues, whether it was Michael Penix in or Kirk Cousins, whether you had Drake London or you didn't. The facts remain that, yes, you could have gone into this Miami Dolphins game and been okay, the Falcons don't have their starting quarterback, but they still have a veteran quarterback of, over a decade in this league. So he should be able to operate this offense. No, you do not have Drake London. And yes, you did release Ray McLeod earlier in the week, but you still have Darnell Mooney. You still have Kyle Pitts. David Sills did some really good things for this organization during training camp. The main thing, this was one of the worst run defending units in the league with the Miami Dolphins. You had your entire starting offensive line healthy, ready to go. You had Bijan Robinson. You had Tyler Algier. Yes, he was working through an injury throughout the week, but you had him up on game day. There is no reason that offensively you shouldn't have moved the ball the way that you did. And that's why I'm kind of sitting here to answer your questions, what went wrong. We can talk about the defense kind of later. I think that this game in particular showed like how important Divine Diablo is to this unit. Offensively, though, the same issues. If the run game is not working, if they make this team one-dimensional, they don't really have a counterpunch or a counterattack that we have seen yet that works to the point of winning games. So,
and I think, go ahead, Tori. I'm sorry.
No, I was done. Like, that's the point, like that's it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I feel like there's a theme that we're going to be talking about throughout the course of this show, and that is feeling like you kind of got punched in the mouth, in the gut, everywhere, and somebody basically came into your pantry and stole your cookies, and you just kind of sat there and kind of watched them just do whatever they wanted to do in your house. And that is very much frustrating. That's why I wanted to say, like, we're not going to necessarily start off completely with like the nuts and bolts and getting down to into the plays. We'll get there. But there were some inherent things that were just utterly and completely frustrating about what we all witnessed yesterday. So, Aaron, I ask you again, we talked about it Thursday. Perfect scenario where it can be either a rebound game against the Dolphins after that loss to the Niners, or it could be a trap game because you're thinking, hey, this is one of the worst teams in the NFL. And it turned out to be a trap game. But I mean, how and why did it devolve into that?
I wish I had a great answer. It was one of those things going into the week, one of the things, you come off wins, you're probably not as good as you think you are. And so you get a little bit of a drop off against the 49ers. You come out of that loss, you're probably not as bad as you think you are, and you're expecting a bounce back. And the Falcons don't get that bounce back. And I think, T, you kind of mentioned it, where you're coming off a game that Raheem said, the 49ers essentially out Atlanted us, using Atlanta as a verb to indicate that, you got to be the more physical team. And unfortunately for the Falcons, they haven't earned that verbiage right now, like out Atlanting whatever is, fumbling the bag, I guess, is what I would use to instead. And it's really troubling when it comes against this Dolphins team that is infamous and has been infamous for a number of years of being a finesse team. Of a team that can't get physical, that when, the weather turns cold and they have to be a team that, has to rely on winning in the trenches, that they're not a team that can do that at a high level. And it's led to, some of their late season struggles over the last couple of years and recent struggles. And the fact that the Falcons got pushed around by this specific team is really what is troubling, especially coming out. Like, it's one thing when the 49ers do it, because that's been something that they've prided themselves on over the years, which is being a team that can win in the trenches. And that's something that the Falcons are hoping to change. And you saw early in the season, expectations were raised based off of how the Falcons had performed with the running game early in the year and with the defensive line and the pass rush. And as we've gotten further and further into the season, we've gotten further and further away from that. And the reason why you went into, or at least the reason why I went into this game feeling like, oh, this should be a bounce back game for the Falcons, was because of the expectation that, after getting punked physically, if we want to say that last week against the 49ers, that the Falcons typically under Raheem Morris tend to respond, where the offensive line gets their butt kicked. They come back the next week and they play better. This defensive line, prides itself on being one of the better defenses in the NFL. You got to go out there and control the line of scrimmage. And so for whatever reason, the Falcons didn't have it when it came to winning in the trenches. They didn't have it in terms of the quarterback play. They didn't have it at the skill positions. Bijan's been incredible this year, but by the Bijan Robinson standards, this was one of the worst games he's ever played. And you got to figure out what's going on with this team when your best players aren't locked in and playing at a high level, when your worst players are playing some of the worst football they've played. You just got to figure out something in that regards and sort of what is going on with this team from a preparation, a practice, game planning standpoint, something is clearly missing from this team because, no one showed up this past Monday. And this is, the second time we've had a game like that where we're like, did anybody show up at the stadium this Sunday? And the answer was no. And so the Falcons got to figure out something. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. Again, I don't have an answer to it.
Yeah. And it's a tough question, Jarvis, to answer because one thing that Free mentioned as well is it's one thing to see the team play like their worst game, if you will, but I don't know, sometimes it's even more painful when you see like the best player play his worst game, and because it speaks to consistency. I mean, even Bijan Robinson talked about that. He talked about the inconsistency that he's seen that they're dealing with even over his 3-year tenure with the team. And I think that is the most frustrating part. Like, we can't figure it out. The reason Tori is like sitting here scratching her head, Aaron's sitting here shaking his head, and I'm sitting here like, what the heck? Because nobody can put a pin on why we can't have the same conversation at least consistently. I'm not saying perfection, Jarvis, because that doesn't exist in the NFL even this season, but can we at least see some consistency? Because Jarvis, it became the trap game that we were a little nervous about on Thursday that it was going to become.
And this is becoming a pattern for me. And I think that the comment that Raheem Morris talking about the Atlanta us, like the verbiage as Free put it, like that is so, how can I say this without being disrespectful? You have no self-awareness if you're talking about this team in that manner. Like if you're saying that Miami Dolphins copy what you all are doing or what you all have been consistently doing, you haven't been watching film, sir. I'm sorry. Like, because what they put on tape yesterday is the epitome of, because I know I go back to the question that you asked us right after the game on the Falcons Squad T. You asked us about whether or not it was the preparation game plan versus the players. And I remember saying that for offensively, it was more so game plan. And I talked about, it was more so players from on the defensive side of the football. But for me, after going back and watching the film, I feel like it's a lot more players than I thought. And when you're talking about everybody having a bad game, how is that even possible?
Yeah.
Everybody had a bad game. Ryan Newsom couldn't get to the second level. Charlie Warner was coming up in a hole and literally just falling to his feet. And the man that Bijan Robinson basically had set him up. He was like, okay, I know Charlie Warner going to go make this block, so here I'm about to get ready to cut. And soon as Charlie Warner fell, doggone linebacker shot right in doggone Bijan Robinson's stomach, because Bijan wasn't expecting that hit because he thought Charlie Warner was going to make that block. And there was another instance where Jake Matthews, with Charlie Warner, he left them one-on-one with Bradley Chubb. I don't know if I would have necessarily done that, and if they were able to do that, if you would have able maybe gave him a little bit more hand before he went up to that next level, it probably would have broke. So for me, I think it's just Raheem Morris not really understanding, like, dog, like why is it that your players are all having bad games at the same time? What is it? It's a preparation standpoint. It's a preparation thing. It's a game planning thing. It's a mental thing. What are you doing during the week that this team comes out and have a game like this? Because I thought the Panthers was the floor. I thought that was the floor. Like, the floor is the floor. If I can talk about Michael Jordan, like, I thought the floor was the floor. But oh my gosh, you lowered it. So I have no confidence that we won't see an even worse game this year, because the head coach is looking at this team one way, but he's looking in the wrong mirror. He's looking at someone else's mirror. He's looking in Kyle Shanahan's mirror. Like, that's what he's saying. He's thinking he's that team, physical. We're gonna figure out a way to win games. We're gonna be that team to to, win the ugly game, right? That's what the words that he used. No, y'all don't have a chance to win ugly games. Good teams win ugly games. Y'all ain't even fight. You didn't even fight once you got down. It was hopeless in the second quarter, in the first half. I remember talking to a media member, like right before we went to half. They were like, "Yeah, man, they need to figure this thing out, man. If they're gonna come back," I was like, "They're not coming back. No, not based off what I saw." And guess what happened? That's exactly what happened.
And Tori, it begs the question. Jarvis kind of went into the one question I want to ask you guys before we wrap up the segment, because I do think it's important. It's Therapy Monday, and it does kind of feel like, man, what's the worst loss? Like the Panthers, that was a gut punch, but you almost say like, okay, it's a one-off. It's an anomaly. We're going to move on. But then you get this, and it's like, which one is it, Tori? Like, I mean, they both make you feel really awful. But I feel like yesterday, I don't know, to me, that was just a bigger gut punch.
Yeah, I agree. Because that was the exact question that Taryn Walk and I talked about on the post-game show for us, is like, what's the worst loss? Is it the loss to Carolina, or is it the loss to the Miami Dolphins? And we both kind of agreed that it's the loss to the Miami Dolphins, because Carolina, you're in week 3. You are coming off a very big emotional primetime win in Minnesota. It's a big deal. You kind of are riding that high. You maybe take the Carolina Panthers and where they were at that time for granted. Now, the Carolina Panthers have actually now gone on to win a few games, so they're not anything to shake a fist at. But the whole that game, there were those communication issues. They were discombobulated on offense. The defense didn't really show up when we were used to them doing so. Even though even in that loss, despite it being 30-0, the defense wasn't the issue in that game. It really was a lot of the issues. The reason why the score got out of hand was because of the offensive miscues. So there was that. And then we're told at that point that it's an anomaly. It's not going to happen again. Okay. And for Jarvis's point, it's like they went out and they beat the Washington Commanders. They went out and beat the Buffalo Bills. Yeah, they kind of laid an egg out in the West Coast against the San Francisco 49ers, but you knew kind of that was going to be a tough game to win, especially coming off of a short week. This loss, though, showed to me that week 3 loss was not this mulligan anomaly, that it's not, this has now happened again. And again, to my point, the issues that we're seeing offensively have been happening since the second half of that Buffalo Bills game. So it's not that this is just kind of performance.
That's where it started, Tori. That's exactly where it started. Yeah.
It's not that this performance on Sunday against the Miami Dolphins kind of comes out of left field. No, it's kind of been tracking that way. And for me, as I'm looking ahead, it's they have the Patriots on deck. Then you go to Germany to face arguably the best offense and team in professional football right now, with the Indianapolis Colts, who has a running back who cannot be stopped. No one has been able to figure out how to stop Jonathan Taylor. And the Falcons, one of their main weaknesses is run defense. So to me, there's a chance that this thing doesn't get better in 2 weeks' time, that you're sitting at the precipice of this thing kind of being if they do not get it together against the New England Patriots next week offensively, I don't know how much hope and faith and reassurance the fan base can get from that.
Yeah, and then the elite processor didn't play, but neither did the elite backup really play. That can be disconcerting as well. We'll take that under further review. This episode of our Falcons Squad Show is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season. Whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both, there's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere Prize Picks operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. And you can use Prize Picks during football Sundays, football Mondays, NBA tip-offs. It keeps every game exciting. And the new stacks feature is a game changer. You can now pick more on, say, Stephen Curry's threes, Jonathan Taylor's touchdowns, and the like, all in that same lineup. Plus, if one of your players leaves early with the injury reboot saves lineup from a loss. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. This episode of our Falcons Squad Show is also brought to you by Rougiette. Let's be real, making excuses doesn't solve anything. We've all heard them before. It's just stress. I'm tired. Or it happens to everyone sometimes. But when it comes to performance, sometimes your body just needs a little extra support. And that's where Rougiette comes in. Rougiette.com offers fast-acting, doctor-prescribed treatments for ED designed to help you stop making excuses, start making moves. Rougiette makes it easy to get started. You just connect with a board-certified doctor 100% online. No awkward waiting rooms, no in-person appointments. So visit rugiet.com/lockedonnfl to get 15% off your first order. That's rugiet.com/lockedonnfl. And don't forget to use our code LOCKEDONNFL so they know we sent you. Rougiette, stop making excuses, start making moves. So, Jarvis, before Sunday, this is what we heard. The euphemistic approach to the Falcons still having Kirk Cousins on the roster because, hey, he had the best backup QB in football. But 21 of 31 for 173 yards and no touchdowns doesn't exactly look like best anything, to me at least. But does it make you concerned that if Penix can't go again this coming Sunday, are you concerned because of what Kirk Cousins showed you yesterday?
Oh, I'm big time concerned. I'm sitting here like I'm almost about to get on my hands and knees and start praying that Michael Penix will be ready on Sunday, because when you think about it from what Kirk Cousins looked like on Sunday, he looked old. I know that's not the best football analysis, but he just looked old. He looked delayed in making decisions, and he was moving around. He looked like he was healthy, but he just looked like a healthy Kirk that probably is on his last leg in the NFL. So I just don't. It's super frustrating because, like you said, Kirk played really well last year when he was healthy, and once he got injured, it didn't look like what we were used to seeing him play in Zach Robinson's system in his first year as an offensive coordinator, but in Zach Robinson's second year as an offensive coordinator. And we're more than a year removed from Kirk Cousins being hurt. He's healthy, and it still doesn't look good. So for me, I feel like Kirk is who he is. I have to go based off of my assessment off of what I've seen from Kirk in the past in those few games and in the last few games last year. And it's not too far from what we saw yesterday, because missing Darnell Mooney on that post, the end breaking route, that was just awful. That was the epitome of what that game was yesterday. Him missing him like that, it was nowhere near where that ball needed to be. And then again, here's the trend here, because we talked about with Michael Penix Jr. against man coverage, against zone. When Miami played zone, Kirk was making some completions. He was getting the ball where it needed to be. But as soon as they went man, and that brings up another issue, right? With Drake London not being out there, who's going to beat man coverage? Kyle Pitts, 6-7 yards a pop. That really going to get you in the end zone? So, yeah, I am big concerned if Kirk Cousins is going to be the starting quarterback this week against the New England Patriots.
Yeah, what about you, Aaron? When you look at the fact that we didn't exactly see anything world beater, anything that looked like a Kirktober situation yesterday, does it make you concerned if Michael Penix Jr. can't go come Sunday against the Colts?
In a way, Sure. I mean, I'm at a point where it's like I'm apathetic to the Atlanta Falcons, so like I don't really have any concerns when it comes to this football team. At this point in time, I think the challenge for the Falcons is going to be, it doesn't really matter who's going to be the quarterback, as Jarvis kind of mentioned it. Like if your receivers aren't winning in their one-on-one situations, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. If your offensive line can't handle protections and stunts and blitzes, as we saw this past Sunday against the Dolphins, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. He's not going to have time to throw. And if you can't run the football, like what is supposed to be the identity and foundation of this offense, like we saw this past Sunday, it doesn't matter who the quarterback is going to be. So to me, whether it's Kirk, whether it's Penix, until the Falcons can solve those other problems on their offense, like it doesn't ultimately matter to me who's playing quarterback. You're basically hoping that whether it's Kirk, whether it's Penix, and I don't think either guy, based off of what we have seen so far this season from them, and at this stage in their careers, Kirk's too old, Penix is too young, right, to basically put the cape on and basically carry this offense in the ways that they kind of need to if this offense continues to perform at the level it played yesterday against the Miami Dolphins of all teams, one of the worst defenses in the NFL. And so you're going up against the New England Patriots, one of the better defenses in the NFL. They're top 3, I believe, going into this weekend. I don't know where they finished coming out of the weekend, but they were top 3 run defense going into the weekend. The Dolphins were a bottom 3 run defense. You couldn't run the ball against the Dolphins. I have no expectation that you're going to be able to do it against the Patriots. And I see no reason to think that, barring, your wide receiver core just suddenly, Drake's good. Kyle's played well. Darnell Mooney's still missing from this offense. Yesterday was a perfect opportunity for him to have his moments. And again, the one time he clearly got open, Kirk missed him by a mile, as Jarvis just put it. So it's, frankly, as I said, I'm apathetic. Like, doesn't matter who the quarterback is, because the whole team, the whole offense stinks. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's a great point, Tori, that Aaron makes, because we're looking at a less than stellar performance, being kind, to Kirk, of what we saw from Kirk Cousins yesterday. But at the end of the day, I don't know if I've heard it put this way, so I'm going to repeat what Aaron said, but it's sort of that maybe too old / too young at the QB position to be able to cape up and be Captain Sava for this team. But it may also be relative to the fact that you can't, because it's just too many other issues that you have to salvage and save. So maybe it's not that you don't want Michael Penix Jr. to come back next week, but that may not be the full answer or resolution to the dilemma anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I think Free said it best. Like, I don't think that the issues solely begin and end with the quarterback in Atlanta. Like, I think for the last couple of years, as we've kind of been on this quarterback carousel, there have been very many times where the quarterback play was holding this team back. Yeah. I don't necessarily feel that way about Michael Penix. I don't even necessarily feel, even though Kirk Cousins, like, that performance yesterday was just kind of a dud, for lack of a better word, but like, I don't necessarily, again, blame him holistically for everything that's going on with this Falcons organization from an offensive unit standpoint. Like, I think the broader issues that I'm seeing, and I think it even goes back to what I said at the very beginning, is like, if this team cannot run the ball, if the run is taken away, there is no counter.
That's the thing. Yep.
And it's one of those things where I kind of, like, almost to a certain extent, like, instead of kind of being like, well, the run got taken away, ho hum, like now the offense can't do anything, they can't move the ball, like, can't win the game because Bijan Robinson can't get more than 3 yards per carry. Like, that should not be the end all be all of your offense. Like, this is an NFL team. Like, you have first rounders all over that offensive unit. Like, it's not just, yes, Bijan Robinson is this freak of an athlete, and I love watching Bijan Robinson, and I think he should get the ball all the time. Yes, but there are other avenues of which this offense should be able to successfully operate. And right now, that's not the case, at least not consistently. And so we've now seen 2 games in a row where the San Francisco 49ers and the Miami Dolphins said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to take away Bijan Robinson. We're going to take away the run. We're going to make the Falcons throw the ball downfield to beat us. And so far, you saw the Tampa Bay Buccaneers back in week 1 have that same approach. You saw even in week 2, Minnesota have their safeties playing super far back to be like, you know what? We're daring you to throw the ball 10 to 5 yards downfield.
Yes.
And you can't, there's no counter punch when the run game is taken away. And I think that is a serious point of frustration for this offense.
Yeah, I agree. And Tori, just to kind of add to what you're saying, and I'm going to caveat in saying, I know they're the world champions, but they're the world champions because they can figure that out. The Philadelphia Eagles are not seeing anything close this year to what they saw in Saquon Barkley last year. But everybody else is figuring out how to step it up just a little bit more. A.J. Brown, that hasn't been clicking for them in terms of him and his connection with Jalen Hurts other than maybe one game this season. They're 6-2. So somehow, some way you got to figure it out. They are injured as well. There are other teams in the league, but that just kind of came to mind because, of course, we kind of talk about Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, Jonathan Taylor in the same sentence. But of those, McCaffrey injured. The 49ers are just figuring out how to gut it out. The Eagles can't get it right with Saquon. Don't know why, but they're gutting it out. So you have to find a way in this league when one thing is not working, when a team tries to make you one-dimensional, you can't allow that to actually happen. Now, low energy yesterday was probably one of the more head-scratching, inexplicable things that we saw. We'll unpack that in Next Up. This episode of our Falcons Squad Show is brought to you by Game Time. NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between queues, login screens, prices jumping at checkout. It's frustrating. That's why I like to use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. So all fees are included, and the price you see is the price you pay. You pull up to Game Time, and after just a couple taps, you'll also see some amazing deals talking your favorite NFL games as low as $100. Man. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Now, terms do apply, but again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Aaron, I know we've spoken on it before, but I wanted to go back to it as well because it's one thing for execution not to be there. It's one thing for us to question maybe the play calling or how deep a Zach Robinson, for example, on offense went into his playbook. But it is another thing to feel like virtually from the first snap in all phases, you're seeing a team that just got out physical and just allowed the Dolphins to dictate the game in their building. I mean, and I know there's no explanation, so this is going to be a redundant question, but I still want you to find a way to answer it. How do you explain the effort of a similarly depleted Dolphins team versus not seeing at least that same effort from a depleted Falcons team?
Yeah, as you said, T, for the Falcons to have the Dolphins do this in their own building, again, looking at the reputation of this Dolphins team, they have not been a particularly good road team. And the Falcons have played their best football at home. And so, again, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the expectations going into this game and the reasons why this loss feels so much worse than that Carolina game. Because you were at home. Yeah. There were every reason to believe that this would be a bounce back game for the Falcons, even if it wasn't necessarily like this, 40-12 win or anything like that. If the Falcons just had to kind of just we're just going to slog this thing out and win this game ugly by handing the ball off to Bijan 30 times in this game, that's how we're going to have to play this game. And you saw it right from the jump that when it came to trying to establish the run, they didn't have it. They got out physicaled in the trenches. When it came to the passing game, they didn't have it. When it came to the defense, they didn't have it. And there's really no explanation other than they just didn't show up for this game. And to, as I said, to have this happen to you by the Miami Dolphins. And again, like, I don't mean it to be disrespectful to the Dolphins, but like there's a reason why we were talking about the vibes being downright atrocious for that Dolphins team heading into this week. And for the Falcons to have that flip on you to the degree it has, like, it shouldn't be shocking, because we've seen this with the Falcons over the years. But you just, as we were talking about earlier, you just wanted to believe that, okay, well, they had that type of performance in week 3 against Carolina. It's not going to happen again. They're not going to lay down. But we joked about it, like, it wouldn't be shocking if, given it's the Falcons, if Miami went out there and put up 35 points and we were all having laughs about it. And wouldn't it be funny if we saw that and Miami went out there and put up 34 points?
Uncomfortable laugh, right, Free?
Right. So, it's just, it's just inexplicable for this team to have laid down so thoroughly and just let the Miami Dolphins of all teams just kind of run roughshod all over them.
I would add too that, like, this game from go felt like it was Miami's to win, not the Falcons, like, to win, not like it. There was something with the energy that I think the team came out with that first defensive series. You're like, okay, the defense is going to show up, but that first those first couple offensive series, like, were really difficult to watch, where they are handing the ball off to Bijan Robinson on first down, handing the ball off to Bijan Robinson on second down, throwing the ball on third down, and punting. Like, how many times did that happen not consecutively, how many times did that happen over the course of 4 quarters for this offense? Like, and then to see kind of like how early on you knew what the Dolphins were trying to do offensively. They were attacking JD Bertrand every chance they got. Every time he was in a one-on-one, every time they were looking at where they wanted to run the ball, it was like, where is JD Bertrand? Where's 40? Going after him. Yeah. And that was a very obvious game plan. And so there was, again, basically everything that NFL football is this game of chess. And it's also kind of like punch, counter punch, punch, counter punch, until you get to the end, until there's all zeros, and the last person that counter punched won the game. Like, that's what the league is. So if you never have a counter punch, if you never have an answer to JD Bertrand getting picked on, if you never have an answer for the run game not manifesting and being completely taken away, then you're going to get what happened on Sunday against a team that, yes, you should have beaten. Like, in every way, you should have beaten this team based on what we have seen from you and what we have seen from the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah.
Tori, why did you bring him up? I was trying to go through this show without bringing that man up. I won't say his name. I'm not going to say his name. I ain't going to call him what I called him on the postgame show, because, I've gotten, this is Therapy Monday, so I'm trying to work to be better. You know what I'm saying? As an analyst, talking about this team, because I feel like, I may have owed him an apology at some point. I don't know if I'm gonna actually say it, but I just, oh gosh. But to your point, Tori, I think that you make a really great point. The vibes were off for that game before it even started. Yeah. I was talking to a member of the Miami Dolphins media, and he was like, yeah, man. Oh boy, they're gonna lose this one. Ooh, it's a dumpster fire. I was like, bro, you don't know who they playing today. Like, there is a sense with this team, they can match energy. They can match you. They can match energy. If you're up and all good, they can. Oh man, getting up for that game. Oh yeah, on the road, prime time. Yeah, they can get up for that joint. Oh man, if you are struggling, trying to figure out a way, there's desperation going on, they can match that too. They can match you to the point where you can execute to the point where you can get that win. And that's what we saw yesterday. I am dumbfounded by AJ Terrell's comments post game. He said, "Yeah, man, our energy was just off." Huh?
In week 8
How?
at home.
How?
Yeah.
There's one thing to go into a fight, you know, when you're outmatched,
Sure.
you know, and you get whooped, you get your butt whooped. That happens. You're gonna lose a fight. But when you go into the match, I don't know what we're gonna do. You know, all right, we gotta play. Yeah, we're good. We're good. And then you get your butt whooped. You lost before the game even started. Like, you talking about energy? That's what we're talking about. Energy and focused. This football. Like, you know how hard it is to explain something watching that game live? It's not supposed to be like that. It really isn't. You know, and I think that when you have players acknowledging those things, that means there's a bigger issue that we can't put our fingers on. And Raheem Morris, based off of what Free said, using that verbiage is even worse. It's an epic fail if you're saying that about your team, because your players are telling you what time it is. Those guys weren't mentally ready to go out there. If you're talking about energy, all right.
Right. But maybe, Jarvis, maybe when we look at energy and when we look at the mental, it might be something where they've got to get themselves together as players. So is it time, Jarvis, for that players? And I'm asking you because, you know, maybe in your playing days, you had those moments where, okay, it's time for us to huddle up as players and figure out how to right the ship. Is it time for that players meeting, that players only come to Jesus type of meeting?
I don't think it's a players only. I don't think a players only meeting would help this team at this point. I think it's a matter of somebody got to be willing to say something in moments, because what happens with this team when stuff starts hitting the fan and not going their way, all you see is everybody kind of like, everybody get looking like space ghosts. Somebody got to be willing to say something. On that particular play where Kirk Cousins got sacked and Bijan did not step up. He did not come ready to block. He did not step up like he was supposed to. He just kind of caught the guy and kind of moved out the way almost, and then the guy just buried Kirk Cousins. I was like, man, if I was Kirk, he would have heard something from me. I wouldn't have berated him or anything. I'm like, hey, man, I need you right here. Like, something as simple as that. You don't have to call him out, call him a mother blanket and all that stuff. Just, hey, man, sir, wake up. I need you. I need you to make that block for me. We got to get somewhere, but you don't get that. You didn't get that. And a lot of times when it comes to ball, if you have no accountability as you're within the game, yeah, there's a pregame process, there's a game planning process, all those things that happen leading up to the game. But one thing that I know in the teams that I played on, I can always count on certain guys saying certain things when stuff wasn't going how it was supposed to. Yeah. Especially if it's a team that we're supposed to beat.
Sure.
If we get our butts kicked by the doggone Kansas City Chiefs, all right, yeah, man, we gave it all we had, blah, 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 whatever. All right, let's pick things back up next week. But if you lose to one of the worst teams in the league, and you aren't willing to say anything to any team, any of your teammates or nothing, no one is saying anything, talking about energy after the game, that's a big problem. Raheem Morris got a big problem on his hand. It's a big pile of doo-doo, too. It's just sitting right there on his desk. You better figure out what he's going to do with it.
Yeah, the thing is like, I don't know how much, like, team-led meetings, like when things are going bad, like how much those actually turn things around. I think there are certain times where that can also cause like divide. Like, not saying that this is going to happen to this team, but I do think that there are some times, like, I know even like using the Falcons as an example, like a couple years ago when the offense couldn't do a dang thing and the defense was kind of playing out of their mind under Ryan Nielsen. And it's kind of like I kept saying, like, the defense is not winning. Like, the defense is not playing bad enough to lose these games the way they are. Like, and like, I think that is kind of like, so you can't have the defense talking to the offense and be like, yo, step it up. Like, we're working our asses off over here. Like, so in this scenario, though, it's the whole thing. Like, I think that there are just decisions at every single level, from execution to play calling to how your response should be, how you should enter a game, how you should leave a game. Like, I don't know. Like, it goes back to what we were talking about with the offense. Like, there's not just like one thing that you can point to and be like, guys, if you clean this up, like, we'll start winning games. Like, that's not where this team is right now. And I don't know if like someone like Jesse Bates getting up in front of the whole entire team and being like, yo, get it together is really gonna like move the needle. Like, you need something to move the needle. You need some type of thing to move the needle. And I don't know what that is. I have like ideas, like I have some things that maybe they could do or try or changes they could make, but like, I'm not paid to
pay for it, Tori. Don't give it to her for free.
Well, I'm not paid to make those decisions. Like,
exactly.
and no one cares what I have to say about it. Like, you've got to go out and do it. Like, I'm here to report on it, and that's it.
Yeah.
Might as well try again. Just throw something at the wall and see if it sticks. You want to have a players only meeting, but these players only meetings that I know they happen a bunch where a team is struggling, and if the team responds the next week, it's like, oh, that players only meeting was the thing. That was the thing that catalyzed the team to success. And then half the time they have these meetings and they don't respond the following week. This has been a consistent theme with the Falcons for this 7+ year playoff drought, where you go back to the Dan Quinn era. They were having players only meetings in those 2019 and 2020 seasons. Sometimes they responded, sometimes they didn't. I'm sure they probably had some, come to Jesus moments, towards the end of the Arthur Smith era. Didn't work out for them. So to me, this is like, there's nobody on this team that you can sit there and say that can go and demand, hey, this is not the standard by which we perform at. The only player the only guy that's on this team that's played in a playoff game is like Jake Matthews, and that was like 8 years ago. Like, Jake can't sit there and be like, hey guys, we got to do better. Like, this is not the standard that we like. This is the standard. The standard of the Atlanta Falcons for the better part of the last decade has been mediocrity. So like, ain't nobody going to be able to get up in front of this team. Jesse Bates, like, I played in the Super Bowl 4 years ago. Okay. Is that going to allow Elijah Wilkinson to block? Is that going to inspire him to block somebody? Is that going to inspire Bijan to pick up a blitz and not fumble the ball and kick the ball out of his own hands? Is that going to, lead to Darnell Mooney getting separation and coverage? Mike Hughes covering somebody, tackling somebody, JD Bertrand get off a block? Okay. If it works, great. Awesome. But I don't go into it expecting that to change anything, but might as well try something, because certainly going down this path that you've been going down ain't working either.
Well, can the trade deadline dealings maybe offer a solution, or maybe that kind of change can spark something? We'll talk about that in the look ahead. This episode of our Falcons Squad Show is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on that action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. So right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel. And again, even if you miss the start of the game, because tonight might be a challenge, because of course the Hawks are on the road and it's a later game than normal. But if you want to ride the hot hand, maybe they get it going from that 3-point line like they did Saturday night. FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score and fourth quarter comeback. So Head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So, Tori, we got the trade deadline coming up, right? And I mean, I know we don't want to say the Falcons are cooked because we want hope to spring eternal, and there are 10 games left in the season, right? So that means there is a possibility that a few things get shifted in some way, shape, or form that might help out. But do you feel like there's anything that can be done between now and next Tuesday that might somehow help the Falcons right the ship, especially when we think about all the injuries that they're dealing with?
Yeah, I mean, you look at two main position groups, wide receiver and inside linebacker.
Yep.
You know for a fact that like you're not going to have Divine Diablo back for some time. You know that he has a fracture in his forearm. He is on injured reserve. There is no sign of like Troy Anderson returning to this active roster. Like there's yeah. So
oh my bad. That's not
you right, yeah, but so you don't have a clear path forward and something at that position without Divine Diablo. Jeff Ulbrich talked before the Miami Dolphins game about like replacing Divine Diablo, like using a by committee approach. We did not see that against the Miami Dolphins, hardly at all. So I don't know if that plan changes moving forward. I don't know if there's someone out there that they're kind of pinpointing as someone who can have a better clone-like experience to what they asked Divine Diablo to do, but they're asking so much of Divine Diablo that I don't know if there's a one-for-one type of replication. And then receiver. At this point, if Drake London is not on the field, we don't necessarily see Darnell Mooney playing and having the production that we saw him have all of last year, whether it be because of injuries, whether it be, I don't know why. And outside of those two, you're kind of piecemealing, it feels like, this thing together from a wide receiver standpoint. So that's where you can start. However, I don't know what the path forward is in terms of like putting packages together that help you win games now. And also don't kind of put you in a hole in 2026. I don't, you don't have a first round draft pick. You really don't have, is it a third round pick? They don't have like one of those day 2, day 3 picks. But I mean, I just don't think the Falcons have a lot to work with in order to be buyers or sellers in this market. I don't right now. I don't see a path forward in that.
Yeah. And what about you, Jarvis? When you look at the trade deadline, do you that's looming? Do you see anything that can be done or should be done by the Falcons that might just maybe be one step in the direction of just resetting things?
The first thing that comes to mind for me is, what's the goal? Are you trying to make the playoffs? Are you trying to save face? I mean, because at this point, when you look at your starting quarterback being injured, he just missed one game. Is Michael Penix going to be out for multiple games? Well, you definitely better get another wide receiver to get this man some help, and pray that Storm Norton figures out a way to be healthy, So I think that there are some things in place that I feel that you can get help. Putting Elijah Wilkinson back at the backup of the backup, I think that will help. Getting healthy, that will help. But I just don't know what their goal is right now, because it's the playoffs. They still have a chance. Sure, don't get me wrong, but if the playoff is the goal, a couple of things are going to have to happen. You're going to have to get healthy, and on that offensive line, because getting a better caliber run blocker in there / pass blocker, getting a guy in there that you were really confident in being a strong backup for Caleb McGarry, that you start there. and then figuring out a way to get a wide receiver without giving up too much draft conversation because you're already kind of slim anyway because you gave up your first round pick, and the first round pick is not really doing anything for you right now. So it's just Terry Fontenot's going to have some tough decisions to make, right? Or is he in the space where blank them picks? I'm trying to save my job. That's going to be, it's all about the mindset. What's the mindset going into the trade deadline? And I feel like that is, the Falcons are going to have to determine whether or not they can be helped at trade down based off what their mindset is going into it.
Yeah. And what about for you, Free? Do you see where there's a path if the Falcons can kind of put it together at the trade deadline where that would be maybe one of the, maybe a key component to helping them to reset and make that kind of playoff run the back half of the season?
No. I've never understood the whole, like, the Falcons need to trade for somebody, but to do what? What piggybacking on what Jarvis says, we talking about this team making the playoffs? No, they gotta win, they gotta go 7-3 the rest of the season. They need to get better quarterback play. They need to be able to run the football. They need to be able to block. They need to be able to get receivers that can separate. They need to be able to stop the run. They need to be able to get pressure with 4. They need to be able to cover guys. They need to be able to tackle guys. What trade are the Falcons going to be able to make that's going to allow them to win 70% of their games and solve all of those problems? So, like, you can make a trade. You can give up a 5th round pick, or no, they don't have a 5th round pick. That's the pick that's missing that Tori's talking about. They don't have a 1st. They don't have a 5th. You can give up another day 3 pick for something and maybe solve one of those problems, but is that going to make all the other problems go away? That's really the issue that I think the Falcons have to deal with, is like, you got to fix all of those other issues before worrying about trade. And if I'm Arthur Blank, and again, maybe Arthur Blank thinks differently about this, but I'm looking at Terry Fontenot and I'm like, you ain't going to be back here next year, my guy, if this season keeps going the way it's going. So I will not allow you. I already gave you the pass to trade it, that future first round pick. You ain't getting the chance to trade another pick for the next GM. You're not going to put that guy in a hole to rebuild this roster so that you can do what? Add one more win to get to 8-9 again? Like, nah, man, no. So if Arthur Blank is walking through the halls, checking up, seeing what's going on, and he's seeing Terry on the phone, like, hang up that phone, Terry. You ain't making any trades at the trade deadline. You're not giving up nothing, all right? Because you just sit here and, I don't know, get coffee for people because you ain't going to be back here next year. So I'm not going to let you put the next GM in a hole trading up for what? Yeah, whatever. So I'm done with that. So no, to answer your question, T, no, there ain't nothing they can do at the trade deadline that's changing anything.
Yeah. And Tori, I'm going to leave you out of this one, but I got to ask this question to the guys because, of course, Tori is the senior Falcons reporter, so we want to be respectful of some things that she can or should not weigh in on. But Jarvis and Aaron can. So Jarvis and Aaron, we've talked a lot about the things that are buzzing around this city right now. We talked about that, a lot of it from the player aspect. But people are starting to ask the question about the coaching and whether or not last year, one of the downsides, and I'll give you guys 90 seconds to respond, but one of the downsides was that what if Jimmy Lake would have been relieved of his duties sooner? What if Kirk Cousins would have been replaced by Michael Penix Jr. sooner, because you had opportunities at the end of the season to still be able to get into the playoffs? Maybe if some of those things had happened sooner. Are we at the point in place, Jarvis and Free, where we are talking about from the coaching perspective? Because again, spent a lot of time today on the players, where some things may need to be reconsidered. Obviously, there's already been one reset this season with Ike Hilliard, with the team parting ways with him. But is it time to start looking to that sidelines for some reset?
I don't necessarily know that. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. Firing Zach Robinson, is that going to change things? Who gonna call plays? TJ Yates? He gonna save the season? No. I'll answer that for it. No. So my whole thing is, it's about figuring this junk out. Like, I almost cussed just then. So because I had a flashback to some dark times. But I think that when you look at where this offense is, the small amount of success that you've had, with your game plan going into games and running the football, when they're able to run the football, this offense looks good. It's just that when you have guys like Elijah Wilkinson getting beat clean on a 3rd and short or a 4th and short, and allowing the defensive lineman that no one has ever heard of make a TFL for -3. Ryan Newsel not being able to get to the second level. It's just things that are starting to come to fruition that we already knew. I knew that Newsel struggled with that. Right. I knew that Elijah Wilkinson was going to struggle with that. So if I know, the coach should know. So, and you need to call plays accordingly. Yeah. Give the man some help on certain situations. Mm-hmm. Have Charlie Warner run this little seek and destroy motion, getting up in that line of scrimmage and be an extra blocker so he can clean up that stuff. It's just, so yeah, I don't think firing Zach Robinson, I'm riding with Jeff Brobrick. The non-execution of the linebacker by committee, I would like to know why we didn't really see that. I would like to know that, but man, firing Zach Robinson ain't finna do Jack.
And, right. And I had to ask the question, Aaron, because, obviously for our listeners, our viewers, we watch the comments and we know what the buzz is. And everybody, of course, always wants that to be the answer, like just, chop and go on the sidelines. They need to go. So I'm just asking the question of you and Jarvis, because when we watch what our comments are, it's one of those where we'd be remiss if we didn't at least pose the question, because everybody seems to think, not that we do here, but everybody seems to think, oh, that's the instant answer, and that's going to cure all the ills for the Falcons. Just fire somebody.
Yeah, it's always this myth of addition by subtraction. It's always this myth of we're just one piece away. We just get the right head coach, we get the right offensive coordinator in here, and it'll all come into place. This is what we have been telling ourselves for the last 7+ years, and it has been wrong every single time. And the belief that it's like, this time it's going to be different. And it's like, no, it's not. Unless you're convinced that TJ Yates is Ben Johnson 2.0, like, what is firing Zach Robinson? So really, to me, the rest of this season is not about the week to week, is Zach Robinson costing the team? Is Raheem costing the team? It's about figuring out what young pieces that probably some other coaching staff, some other front office is going to inherit next year. What are the young pieces that you can legitimately build around, right? Bijan's one of those pieces. Drake London's one of those pieces. Chris Lindstrom's one of those pieces. Outside of that, throw AJ Terrell in the mix. Outside of that, who else is coming, right? Who else is coming to the party? That's what you got to figure out over the next 10 games. Is Michael Penix going to be that? Xavier Watts, James Pierce, Jalen Walker, etc., right? All that. That's really what's at stake. And, talking about firing the coaches doesn't solve those problems, doesn't, determine whether or not those guys are going to emerge. Because that's really, to me, where we're at with this season, where it's just like, this is kind of a wash. Knowing the Falcons, they'll go on a run at some point later in the season and convince us, oh, maybe the Falcons are going to come back, and then they'll, of course, inevitably let us down by losing a Week 18 game to the New Orleans Saints, who are probably like 3-12 at that point in the season or whatever it is. But I don't think firing the coaches really solves a problem. It's just, scapegoating somebody for, this team needs a complete overhaul probably this offseason, and it's time to find out, who's going to be around for that overhaul, who's going to last through that overhaul, and who's got to go.
Just do something to make me feel good.
Yeah. Good. So thanks to our everydayers for making the Falcons Squad Show your first listen of the day. We tried to make you feel good with Therapy Monday. Hope it helped. But be sure to stop by Locked On Falcons with your host, Aaron Freeman, as your second listen. You can catch Jarvis as a frequent contributor for Locked On Falcons, and check out some of Tori's great work at AtlantaFalcons.com. See you next time.